Hello, YouTube, and welcome back to me trying to read every single lost episode creepypasta that I can get my hands on. Today, we'll be reading Real Monsters, the Final Scare. Now, Real Monsters has an impression in my mind, though I can't say I actually got to watch any of the actual episodes. Their designs are just so... I kind of want to say scarring, but like in a good way. Their designs just tickle your brain in a way that you just kind of remember them, even if it's just vaguely, you know? And I completely forgot the title of the show was Real Monsters. So I'd be like, what is that, what's that show with the monsters in it? It was so close, so close. But that's enough of my rambling. I think we should just get into it, shall we? Real Monsters, the Final Scare. One day last year, I was out with a friend shopping at garage sales, trying to find furniture for his new apartment. The day was bright and sunny, ordinary for Florida. When we had found all of the furniture he needed and people started to end their sales, we started driving home. When he pulled over into the yard of an elderly couple who were still sitting by their table of things to be sold. There were mostly ceramic statues and old books, things you would expect from people of that age. But one thing really caught my eye. On the table was a box of maybe 12 movies. I started digging through them, seeing mostly uninteresting titles starring Tom Hanks, my least favorite actor. I was about to walk back to the truck when I noticed that one tape said, Real Monsters, the Final Scare. My heart started racing with excitement, seeing as how I had never seen this episode, and the fact that I had assumed this show had completely disappeared. I asked the price of the tape, and the old man said he'd take 10 cents for it. He had no use for it since his grandkids were all grown and never watched the tape. At the time, I didn't notice his odd tone of voice. When my friend and I returned to his new apartment, I insisted that we procrastinate on unloading the new furniture so we could watch the tape. He agreed and put the tape into the built-in VCR on his small television. The episode started with 10 seconds of static, then cut to the dump. In place of the normal dark colors of the beloved cartoon were mostly painfully vivid hues, the most prominent of which was a disturbingly realistic blood red splattered over the trash and soaking into the dirt, the texture of which was more carefully drawn than normal. The soft sound of static continued in the background while the camera slowly zoomed in toward the washing machine, which was now dented, scratched, and splattered with small bits of brain matter. Don't know how you know that. I cringed at the appearance of the familiar dump that had been warped to look so horrific. When inside the Monster Academy, most seats were empty, except for the spots where Crumb, Ikas, and Oblina were sitting. Zimbo, the obnoxious monster from the episode Ikas and the Red Zimbo, was flying around in a clumsy circle around a malicious-looking, angry Gromple, looking as though someone had stabbed him in his left wing. The Gromple looked at the trio with hyper-realistic eyes. Of course, his red lips twisting into a horrid grin. He held up a single finger as if to indicate that he wanted the monsters around him to stop talking, which was quite unnecessary considering the fact that no one was making a sound. "Tonight," he hissed, "the four of you will team up and perform one final scare. A scare was so horrifying that it will be your last. You must complete it soon, as our fallen brethren have already done." He looked at the ceiling and paused for maybe 30 seconds. "Go. Now. Now. Now!" he screamed, causing Ikas to cringe, the first sign of movement from the trio of monsters. Oblina uttered something under her breath, sounding like, "Oh my god." "I am est vicious ut had avent." Crumb nodded and added, "I am est vicious it quandam horro in ibissus." Ikas then shakily whispered, "I am est vicious nos most interest. Zimbo laughed sadistically. I am nos ero terminus of plurus ago. My friend, who had taken Latin courses in high school, whispered those phrases in English, making the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. Heaven forbid you let us know what they said. As butchered as it was. The scene then cut to black for about a minute, then slowly brightened to reveal the four monsters hiding in an alley, malice in their eyes. Abelina picked up Crumb, throwing him out of the alley under a bus, a look of genuine shock on his face. Photorealistic blood splattered over the front of the bus and the street as I watched my favorite character die, his eyes rolling to the feet of a small child, who began to sob. The blood on the windshield caused the bus to swerve, hitting a young family and smashing them against the side of a large building as the remaining three monsters remained hidden in the alley, chuckling in an unnerving, demonic manner. Ekis, you next, Abelina screeched enthusiastically. The camera zoomed into the face of the small red monster, who was shaking and stuttering helplessly in fear. A single tear dropped from his eye as he hesitantly nodded. Ekis put on his normal face, but the context was all wrong, making the lovable monster an unnerving beast too aware of his own fate. Ekis then walked slowly to the center of a group of people watching an obese street mime intently. He crept up behind the man in black and white stripes, climbing up his clothes in a flash, digging his small claws through the back of the man's skull, tearing audibly through the bone and brain tissue until his now even redder hands emerged from the mime's eyes. The mime fell backward onto Ekis, and the monster's bones could be heard crushing under the weight of the mime as the photorealistic gore splattered the crowd. The camera cut back to Oblina and Zimbo, whose laughter echoed throughout the small alley. Shall we do the final honors together? Zimbo asked. Oblina nodded. The two walked over to a young boy who was frantically attempting to help an old woman across the street, away from this terrible scene. Oblina grabbed onto Zimbo and the obnoxious monster flew upwards, lifting them quickly across the street and in front of their targets. Zimbo swiftly flew down the old woman's throat, leaving a grotesquely large lump as the sound of small wings beating against flesh could be heard from inside. The lump that was Zimbo jerked around uncontrollably for a moment before the sound of Zimbo's wings silenced and the lump in the woman's throat stopped moving. The woman, now blue in the face, fell to the ground. Grandma? Grandma! No! No! No, no, no! The boy was screaming violently. He began to smash his head onto the pavement, the wound getting worse and worse until the screen faded to black. Camera cut back into the Monster Academy, where a blood-splattered Oblina stood in front of the Gromble, who had an evil grin on his face. Oblina, how marvelous, he said as the scare played on the screen. You managed to kill all of these humans and trick the others into a shirt. This is the best scare I've seen in decades. Gromble stared at Oblina for a minute, his grin only growing wider and more grotesque, before saying the words, "Congratulations, valedictorian." When the episode ended, my friend and I stared at each other in total shock. He was shaking violently, as if having a seizure, before going still. I took this tape to the Goodwill nearest to my house. Thinking back, it was a horrible idea, since I could never wish this episode on anyone. So, if you're the unfortunately nostalgic person to find this tape, burn it. I don't want you to suffer from these horrid nightmares I've been having lately. And that's the end of the creepypasta. Cliché. Clichés, clichés, clichés. Hyper-realistic blood. Disproportionate violence. Everything is so creepy. Sudden, butchered looking Latin. Not that I know any Latin, but I don't think it's supposed to look like that. I don't know. It was a 2 out of 10. I mean, I could visualize, but it's just riddled with the cliches. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that it would be a final scare if everyone else died. But I feel like this is very counterproductive. I don't know. I didn't particularly enjoy this one. And also, taking it to Goodwill? Come on. Was it the same day? Did you sleep on it and then take it to Goodwill? That's rough, buddy. You know, 2 out of 10. I want to give it a 1 out of 10, but like, I don't know. I didn't particularly like it, but let me know what you guys thought. Did you think it was better than what I'm giving it credit for? Then again, this is my arbitrary rating system, so. But no, you guys can let me know what you guys thought. But I think it's bye-bye for now. Bye.